adding the compassion in education. And without compassion, we cannot define the education. Now we have next speaker, Serena Adams. She is co-founder of the Reef Stake Malaysia. So we'll be happy to listen the Reef story from the Serena, because she's doing great work in Malaysia, and the way she has founded her network, and she's inspiring, and she's making difference in Malaysia. Let's listen from her. So Serena, are you there?
Thank you, Mr. Virendra, and thank you for the opportunity.
Yes, Serena, welcome.
Yes, so I'll be sharing my screen. Give me a minute. Okay, just checking if you can all see my screen in presenter mode.
Yes. Your screen is...
Cool, thank you very much. All right, so good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in today's session. So thank you again for the opportunity. My name is Serena, and I'm the co-founder of Reef from Malaysia. And for this session on responsible education for a responsible nation, I'll be sharing you a bit of a story on what we did in Malaysia from Reef. And the topic of my presentation would be amplifying marine education through game-based learning. So these are a few of my talking points. I'll be introduced a little bit about Reef and the gameplay, and as well as the impact using this approach through environmental education. And lastly, we will also highlight about building coral reef resilience against climate change. So as an introduction, so Reef is a social enterprise that focuses on environmental education, and it was founded by a team of 4 marine biologists working in the conservation field. So there's myself, Edmund, Kwek, and Kaylin, and we are all marine biologists. We all had our day jobs, but we also had an interest for education. And so we wanted to explore different ways using different tools to engage people more effectively. And of course, coral reef was the center of the attention when we were going through this ideation process. Malaysia is surrounded by the ocean, and we are also part of the richest marine biodiversity, particularly the coral species. So our goal was to find ways, how can we simplify complex marine environmental issues, and as well as complex stakeholder relationship when it comes to conservation on the ground. So what we did was we began conceptualizing an idea using just sticky notes on poker cards. So that was like the phase of conceptualizing. And in 2018, we received a small grant from YCLI, Seeds for the Future Grant Award. And we officially launched our card game. And it was the first marine theme role-playing card game in Malaysia, right? So there was no such game produced in Malaysia. And so we were happy for the opportunity that we were able to expose participants and public on this game. And we represented Malaysia and won the first prize at the 8th International Educational Games Competition for the non-digital games category. So a little bit about the gameplay. So apart from improving people's knowledge on coral reef ecosystem, the game also centered around 3 main objectives. So first is how can we simulate, right, real life stakeholder relationship to determine the future of coral reef. So players could take on role playing. So I'll discuss a bit more later on. And we also introduced iconic marine species in the board game. So we introduced species such as dugong and as well as the leatherback turtle. And finally, we also highlight threats to marine ecosystems. So these are the threats that are commonly found within Southeast Asia region, but also globally. So as I mentioned earlier, it's a role-playing card game. And so players could draw any of this role. And this role, you would see these are common roles that you would see in a conservation sphere, particularly in marine conservation. So you always have a conservationist, you'll have fishermen or people who rely on these resources. You also have natural resource managers, tourism operators, politicians, and developers. And so these are the 6 main roles that people could take on. And based on your roles, you will have specific priorities to achieve. And then you would then begin building your track. So this game is a building game, right? So you're either building towards a healthy coral reef, or you are building towards more infrastructure, more hotels, or more resorts for profit driven. And so taking on these roles really allows players to immerse the characters, and as well as to have more empathy towards one another, especially when you have not spoken to any of these stakeholders before. And so this provides players an opportunity to explore those avenues. Yes, and so apart from building towards the nature track or development track, the game also introduced various what we call scenario cards or sabotage cards. So these cards intend to give players an advantage, or it intends to sabotage other players. So according to your roles,
Ma'am, you're muted. Please unmute. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, sorry. Did I stop somewhere early on, or I'll just continue then?
Yeah, please continue.
Okay, so our card also introduces different marine iconic species and as well as different threats. And this brings the game another level. It makes the game more interesting, and as well as allows roles to negotiate one after another. So that's just a general gameplay. All right, so moving on, I'll talk a little bit about the impacts using game-based learning for environmental education. So our games, what we've learned so far is that they are effective in classes, in school spaces, especially for younger kids in secondary school. So this was when I was beta testing with some of the school students from St. Michael's. And it only took me about 20 minutes or so to explain the gameplay. And then they were and I was very surprised that they could catch up on the game so fast, and they eventually play out the game as any adults would. So we find that game-based learning can enable young students to be exposed very early on environmental issues. You know, as opposed to using books or syllabus, this could be quite heavy and boring for some students. So we find that games are more effective to retain students' attention, and as well as breaking down complex issues to simple terms that they could understand. Apart from that, environmental education is also very crucial to be shared among local communities or coastal community. And as we know that with climate change, people who live in coastal areas are the first people that will be impacted by it. And so empowering people from coastal communities with this knowledge are important to help them make informed decisions, especially when they are involved in stakeholder consultations or they are actually part of a local marine managed areas. And of course, we find that game-based learning helps that process to allow them to understand these sort of different issues on the ground. And apart from that, game-based learning also helps to stimulate critical thinking, particularly on conservation issues, among practitioners that have very different background or very different disciplines or different perspective as you. And our games has been used in the space of universities. Lecturers have used our game during classroom to stimulate discussions. But I think any games or board games out there, when you purchase, board games are meant to have fun. We're meant to simply to have fun over a dinner, over a coffee session, or group gathering. So board games, when we design board games, it's not just intended to be very heavy in terms of the educational content, but it also meant it also needs to be fun so that people could, keep on playing. So our card games have reached throughout different countries throughout Southeast Asia region, but we've also reached out to areas in the United Kingdom and as well as United States of America. And so game-based learning with a common language such as in English can be spread across throughout different nations. So I just wanted to highlight a little bit with relations to climate change. So we know that climate change dramatically affects coral reef health. Like one of the indicators is when we see the bleaching of coral. It's a sign where the warming ocean or the sea surface temperature has increased. And what happens is when there's prolonged coral bleaching, the corals will eventually die. And then every other organism that depends on corals will also be affected by it. So we know that climate change dramatically affects the health of the ecosystem. But apart from climate change, which is a global threat, we also need to look at local threats, direct human threats, such as unsustainable fisheries practices, such as cyanide fishing and fish bombing. This gives direct impacts to corals, and including irresponsible tourism practices that could also impact the health of the corals. And so it is equally important, not just about mitigating climate change, but also to reduce these local direct threats. They are equally important in a sense to build resilience of coral reef against climate change. So at Reef Stakes and with marine environmental education that we strongly share among the public, we also aim to build strong advocates among Malaysians to continue protect and conserve coral reef in Malaysia and beyond. So this is my last slide, and I would just like to reiterate the opportunities when we use game-based learning. So when we talk about issues on climate change or sustainable development goals, this could be quite heavy and serious to a certain extent, and some people may not find it interesting, and it could be quite a put off. Right, so we find that using game-based learning provides these opportunities. It raises learning motivation and fun in the context of a theory-loaded content. It improves interactivity and having fun, and to satisfy the bigger picture as well. So people can have fun and at the same time learn important knowledge. And last but not least, game-based learning provides you the flexibility to tailor to specific audience and demographics. And these are also other 7 reasons to try out game-based learning. And I hope that everyone are inspired to use this sort of approach when it comes to education. And with that, I would like to thank the organizers for the opportunity. If you have any questions, you can always find us at Reef Stakes at Facebook and Instagram. Thank you.
Thank you, Serena, for making presentation, for using your